Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business. Complicated. Thank you very much. I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton. She congratulated us, it's about us, on our victory. And I congratulated her and her family on a very, very hard-fought campaign. I mean, she fought very hard. Hillary has worked very long and very hard over a long period of time, and we owe her a major debt of gratitude for her service to our country. I mean that very sincerely. Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division, have to get together. To all Republicans and Democrats and independents across this nation, I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. It's time. I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me. For those who have chosen not to support me in the past, of which there were a few people, I'm reaching out to you for your guidance and your help so that we can work together and unify our great country.
In 2016 November, Donald Trump was elected President of the United States, elected by the people, elected by the Senate, endorsed by Hillary Clinton. Almost a year later, almost nothing had changed in the financial world. In fact, President Trump endorsed printing more and more dollars. In fact, you couldn't print the dollars fast enough. And something happened. In late 2017, December, cryptos had a massive bull run. Bitcoin went up to $20,000 per Bitcoin. XRP went to $3.50. XLM went to around $1. Ethereum went to $1,500. And after that, 2018, you had the decline, you had the bear market, where almost 90% of the value of cryptos were wiped off. And we believe that the catalyst for this was Bitcoin slow transactions. You had JP Morgan coming out stating that Bitcoin, they would never use it. This is Jamie Dimon. They would never use it. You shouldn't buy it. All of JP Morgan's employees should not touch it with a barge pole. Then you had Warren Buffett saying that, Charlie Munger saying that Bitcoin is rat poison and you shouldn't touch it. And you know, all this fundamental news weighed into the price. But namely, ultimately, Bitcoin's blockchain itself was stalling transactions. And when it was stalling transactions, it took sometimes up to 2 weeks for it to complete a transaction, for a block to complete. And with that, that's terribly inefficient. And because of this 1 megabyte block size, enough strain was on the blockchain to put people off from buying Bitcoin. And obviously with Roger Ver, his vision was to increase the block size so we don't have this issue, and thus Bitcoin Cash came about. Moving further on down the line, 2019, there was a crisis. And welcome back to part 3 of Banking on Bitcoin Revisited. And in today's video, we're going to be touching on regulations, looking at the regulators, what they're doing, what they're not doing, what they should be doing. But for now, let's just speculate on who is Satoshi Nakamoto. Who could Satoshi Nakamoto be? Well, I want to say, hey, you know what? Jed fits the bill for me. I think he could be Satoshi Nakamoto. Yes, McPhee could be, but he's just not in there with the cypherpunks, and he might not need to be. So for me, there is potential, Jed or John McPhee, but for the most part, it could be the CIA. Who knows? Who knows? And actually, we're not meant to know. And in any case, let's just look at Satoshi Nakamoto as if it were just the cypherpunks. That keeps things nice and simple and keeps crypto current. Banking on Bitcoin Revisited.
Up in the question of who is Satoshi Nakamoto, where did this come from? Who is this person? I mean, this is the 2000s. Information is out there, everything. Everyone knows everything about everybody. How can there possibly be a person that nobody knows who this guy is? Hal Finney was the first guy to work with Nakamoto. He was a cryptographer. As soon as Nakamoto released it, he was one of the first people to email him back and say, hey, this is interesting, I'd like to work with you. And in the first weeks of Bitcoin, he worked with him back and forth, setting up the system.
And Satoshi Nakamoto ended up sending Hal Finney the first ever Bitcoin transaction.
Any discussion of Satoshi's identity has to go back to the fact that Bitcoin was based on this small number of projects back in the 1990s that only a handful of people knew about, like Hashcash and BitGold and B-Money. And so you end up with a pretty small group of people who would have known about these projects. I think for Bitcoin's sake, the continuing anonymity of Satoshi has ended up being a really good thing.
In the early days of Bitcoin, you really had the tech-minded people really most likely looking to harness the power of Bitcoin for their own blockchains. And then it was the libertarians that stepped in, that wanted to politicize Bitcoin as this decentralized money not controlled by the banks or governments, putting the power back into people's hands. And when these two groups got together, boom, the Bitcoin price skyrockets. All the while this was happening. Here's a clip from The Big Short to explain it all.
God damn it. This is your basic mortgage bond. All right? The originals were simple. They were just thousands of AAA mortgages bundled together, guaranteed by the US government. The modern ones are different. They're private, and they're made up of layers of tranches. The highest level AAAs getting paid first, the lowest rated Bs getting paid last, taking on defaults first. Now, obviously, if you're buying Bs, you can make more money, but they're a little risky. Sometimes they fail. Chris? Somewhere along the line, these Bs and double Bs went from a little risky to dog shit. Where's the trash? I'm talking rock bottom FICO scores. No income verification. Adjustable rates, dog shit. The default rates are already up from 1% to 4%, fellas. And if they rise to 8%, and they will, a lot of these triple Bs are going to 0 too. And that, you're too close, is an opportunity.
Okay, you're saying that at 8% the bonds fail and we are already at 4%?
That's right.
If they go to 8, it's Armageddon.
Yeah, that's right.
How come nobody's talking about this?
You're completely sure of the math.
Vision.
So you're offering us a chance to short this pile of blocks. How?
With something called a credit default swap. It's like insurance on the bond, and if it goes bust, you can make 10 to 1, even 20 to 1 return, and it's already slowly going bust.
10 to 1, 20 to 1. No way.
10x,
And no one's paying
20x.
No one is paying attention because the banks are too busy getting paid obscene fees to sell these bonds.
But wait, you are the bank. When you work for the bank, I bet your margins are pretty nice and fat.
Let's not talk about my margins, by the way. Being nice and fat, that's a nice shirt. Do they make it for men?
Aren't you the bank?
I work for the bank. I don't think like a bank. Big bank, small bank, I like to make money. All right? Let me put it this way. I'm standing in front of a burning house, and I'm offering you fire insurance on it.
How can these underlying bonds be as bad as you say? It wouldn't be legal.
Nobody knows what's in them. Nobody knows what's in the bonds. I've seen some that are 65% AAA rated, that I know for a fact are filled with 95% subprime shit with FICOs below 550.
Get the fuck out of here.
You want me to really blow your mind? When the market deems a bond too risky to buy, what do you think we do with it? Take a guess.
I don't know, you tell me.
All right. You think we just warehouse it on the books? No. We just repackage it with a bunch of other shit that didn't sell and put it into a CDO.
The CDO.
Yes, a CDO.
What is that?
This is where we take a bunch of Bs, double Bs, and triple Bs that haven't sold, and we put them in a pile. When the pile gets large enough, the whole thing is suddenly considered diversified. And then the whores at the rating agency give it a 92, 93% AAA rating. No questions asked.
Say that again.
Collateralized debt obligation. It's important to understand because it's what allowed a housing crisis to become a nationwide economic disaster.
Banks around the world were in turmoil. Economic crash had ensued. VC money then started to pour into Bitcoin. Trickle, 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 boom. It was just a few guys from Silicon Valley running into Bitcoin guys at coffee houses. Trickle, trickle, boom. So now you have the Bitcoin tech-minded coders, the libertarians, the politicized movement for Bitcoin, VC money, Silicon Valley, the perfect storm for the explosion of Bitcoin. It was the case. The more people that got involved, the stronger the network became, and the more Bitcoin grew in price and strength as a movement.
I think most Bitcoin companies at the time knew that a big part of the market for Bitcoins was people buying drugs on Silk Road who needed Bitcoins to do that.
The big bang moment for Bitcoin was the Silk Road. What Ross Ulbricht did by creating the Silk Road was he took this by no means common but usable cryptocurrency called Bitcoin, and he married it with a streamlined, workable user interface that was a free market that could sell anything.
What would happen if people were really free, truly free, to trade what they wanted to?
Ross did have an extremely radical libertarian viewpoint and really wanted to experiment with using technology to create free markets for people. What Ross Ulbricht did was a combination of Tor and Bitcoin. That was the aha moment that Ross must have had.
The Silk Road was basically the fruition of all of the cypherpunk dreams, the crypto-anarchists utopia that they had imagined in the 90s, was real now. This was a perfectly, in theory, anonymous website with perfectly, in theory, anonymous money used to buy any contrabands imaginable.
The Silk Road website is a particular headache for authorities. It's an anonymous online marketplace where people sell drugs that are posted to customers all over the world.
Cyber investigators, when there's a crime, can kind of trace you back because you have an IP address. It's like a telephone number. So if you call another computer, that IP address is tracked. On Tor, that's taken away because your information hops from computer to computer to computer. So there's no way to trace you back to your original.
Tor is an anonymous system.
In 2011, Ross Ulbricht brought Silk Road to life, the Bitcoin website. But it was swiftly shut down in 2013 by the FBI. And really, the cat was already out of the bag. it was too late. By 2014 February, Bitcoin ATMs were circulating around the United States. So back in 1998, Nick Szabo came up with the first idea for smart contracts, and this was actually the blueprints for Bitcoin itself, with the proof of work mechanism, the idea you have to mine for gold, the blocks being stamped. This was the first initial smart contract. In 2015, a young developer named Vitalik Buterin really saw this and believed that it needed more. You needed to be able to do more within the blockchain, and that was to be able to create applications on the blockchain, giving it true smart contract capabilities to decentralized applications, or dApps as we know them today. Now, with that said, what we have to remember is actually, in theory, if Stellar was able to create a chain of operations on its blockchain, then that is a sort of smart contract. And Stellar came about in 2014. So you couldn't actually create a dApp on the Stellar blockchain. You still can't today. But actually, there is the new FutureNet that's coming about on the Stellar blockchain, which uses the programming language Rust, where you will be able to create dApps on the blockchain through the FutureNet. Now, what's being said, or what most people seem to accept, is that Ethereum was the first real smart contracts protocol, or blockchain shall I say, because of its ability to develop dApps. You could launch an initial coin offering on this blockchain, meaning that you can create your own coin and do whatever programming effectively you wanted to, just as long as you had enough gas fee coins, enough Ethereum to be able to do the development. With that said, Vitalik Buterin had slept at one of the employees' houses of Ripple, Blackstone, whatever you want to call it, and overheard their conversation about Ripple and XRP, and it's believed that this is where he got his idea from. But in theory, in actual eventuality, it was that he tried to get a job with Ripple, because these were the guys that were leading the way, and when he couldn't do that, he developed Ethereum, which is now the leading smart contracts blockchain in the world, and outranking Ripple, or should I say XRP. Very important to differentiate the two, XRP and a Ripple, two completely different things. One is a blockchain with its ledger, and one is a company run by shareholders. XRP is not run by shareholders. It's a decentralized digital asset. Okay? Now, with that aside, we need to look at what happened with the Ethereum blockchain. Why it used to be proof of work and why it's now proof of stake. Over to you.
we need to look at different consensus mechanisms, that of proof of work and proof of stake. So the big question is, are the two validated the same way? Well, the short answer is no. They're essentially two completely different consensus mechanisms. So with that, Bitcoin, for example, uses a consensus mechanism known as proof of work, whereas coins like Cardano, Algorand, EOS, Next, Blackcoin all use proof of stake. To validate transactions, proof of work uses computers or nodes, which are essentially miners. They essentially compete to solve a complex computational puzzle. Once the puzzle is solved, the block is then deemed valid and is added to the blockchain. The first one to solve it is rewarded with the Bitcoin. Proof of work was created to make decentralization in currency possible, but like all things, it has its shortfall. First, the difficulty of the computational puzzle increases with more miners. As a result, miners and mining companies are incentivized to invest in high-end computer hardware to remain competitive and verify transactions. This makes mining extremely expensive, and a lot of the computing power is, ironically, centralized. The other issue is that energy consumption in mining large cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin is very high, and compared to blockchains operating with other consensus mechanisms, it's much slower and much less scalable. This is the main reason why Ethereum has migrated away from proof of work, which brings us to proof of stake. In POS, the validation of new blocks is dependent on the number of coins being staked. The more coins staked by one person, the higher the chance that they get picked as a validator. Let's say this person validates a block containing this person's transactions. Since his stake coins are locked as collateral, he needs to ensure that his work remains flawless or his stake can be slashed. If he's successful, then he's rewarded. Proof of stake brings in a certain degree of fairness, as validators are selected randomly, but is much more scalable in comparison to proof of work chains, but it comes at the cost of decentralization. Proof of stake favors the wealthy. The more coins you have, the more voting power you have, and the more likely you are to validate and earn even more coins, which obviously creates a network dominance effect. That's great, thanks for that, Nathan. So now we know the difference between proof of work and proof of stake, but when did proof of stake come about? And why has Ethereum decided to switch to proof of stake? Nathan, over to you. Proof of stake, or POS, was first introduced in a paper by Sonny King and Scott Nadel in 2012 and intended to solve the problem Bitcoin mining's high energy consumption caused. At the time, it cost an average of $150,000 a day to maintain the Bitcoin network. In 2017, this figure was a staggering $6.7 million. So assume, it's 12 cents a watt and costs, multiply that with obviously an estimated, 56 million kilowatts per hour of electricity that the Bitcoin network consumes. There you go. That's quite a bit. And in today's money, that's a staggering amount. Rather than relying on the energy dependent work of miners to add blocks, Sonny and Scott suggested an alternative method called staking, where a deterministic algorithm would choose nodes based on the number of coins an individual had. In other words, stakers would have more chance of being selected to add a block to the chain and reap the rewards if they staked more coins in their wallet. They hoped this would avoid the ever-increasing energy consumption and hash rate difficulties of mining. However, the new consensus mechanism was not without its issues. For the issues of proof of stake, there's really four main basic issues. Distribution, since block rewards go to stakers, how do you distribute coins initially? Monopolization, those with significant amount of coin reap a majority of all future coins. 51%, just like how proof of work has to be wary of a 51% attack from miners, so too does proof of stake have to be wary of a staker who has a 51% stake weight. Nothing at stake or NOS, proof of stake adds a block when a node meets a set of conditions, which includes stake weight. However, the coin forks when two nodes meet these conditions at the same time. The fork is then resolved by other nodes signing one or two transactions. The hypothetical problem of nothing at stake or NOS arises when 99% of all nodes sign both chains because there is no cost, nothing at stake to verify these transactions. Therefore, 1% staker could potentially double spend by paying with coins on one chain, but then verifying the other.
Yes, the double spend. That's great, thanks Nathan. What about Ethereum and NFTs? Of course, we're going to be touching on that subject. Well, some people may think that actually the first NFT was Hello Kitty, or should I say, sorry, CryptoKitties. CryptoKitties, the game created in 2017 on Ethereum, which allows people to buy, trade, and breed collectible kitties, right? And really, this isn't the case. Because we know that in fact, the first NFT was created in May 2014 by Quantum, whose creator was Kevin McCoy and Anil Dash, and it was a video clipping of McCoy's wife. So that's a misconception. However, this did usher in, Ethereum did usher in this new age of dApps where many people were using it. And really, this is highly likely to have sparked the frenzy. It was the frenzy for ICOs. Investors saw this and saw the potential on the Ethereum blockchain, and ICOs started to spring up everywhere, which actually, in my opinion, fueled the bull run of 2017. But Ethereum was not without its issues. It was hacked. And Ethereum Classic came about as a fork back in 2016. Millions were drained from the Ethereum blockchain. There was a disagreement that it should not be changed because of immutability. The whole point is that blockchain is immutable, transactions cannot be reversed. So as a result, it was Ethereum Classic was about, which actually is the original Ethereum, and it's the reverse of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin is the original Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash is the new Bitcoin because it has a larger block size. So all the while, Bitcoin, blockchain, Ethereum, XRP, were finding their feet, Elon Musk was working in an initiative with a number of people, Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, to form what we now use as, or call as, OpenAI. This artificial intelligence enabling programmers to write their code, enabling images to be formed, videos, and I'm sure many, many other things in terms of predictive scales. And there are a number of software applications you could use for this. For the most part, we use TensorFlow, which works with JavaScript, and use that in the framework React and Next, the library we like. But Musk was working on AI, and this has ushered in a new future. So what else was happening while blockchain was being conceived back in the 90s, really coming to life sort of in the early noughties, or shall I say 2010? What else was happening?
The first quantum computer that actually worked was produced in the 1990s. In 1994, Peter Shaw, a mathematician at AT&T Bell Labs, developed a quantum algorithm for factoring large numbers. This algorithm proved that quantum computers could, in theory, perform certain tasks that cannot be achieved by classical computers. In the years that followed, a number of experiments were conducted to demonstrate some of the basic principles of quantum computing. In 1998, a team at Los Alamos National Laboratories demonstrated a 2-qubit quantum computer using nuclear magnetic resonance (NMR) techniques. However, it was not until 2011 that a team at D-Wave Systems produced the first commercial quantum computer, the D-Wave 1. The D-Wave 1 was built using superconducting qubits and was primarily designed for tasks such as optimization and machine learning, rather than factoring large numbers. Since then, there have been significant advances in quantum computing, with larger and more powerful quantum computers being developed by companies such as IBM, Google, and Rigetti Computing.
Go is, I believe, a Chinese game similar to chess and drafts mixed together, and it's extremely difficult. It's considered one of the hardest games because contests usually plays out on a grid that's 19 times 19 squares, right? This means there are endless formations and moves you could make, which is crazy, right? In fact, some players estimate that the number of legal board positions in Go even surpasses the number of atoms in the universe, and that's kind of bad when you think about it. What's the significance of Go? Well, in 2016, AlphaGo, an AI program, that's March 2016, beat the reigning champion, a major milestone in artificial intelligence research. Go had previously been regarded as a hard problem in machine learning that was expected to be out of reach for the technology at the time. And it's clear that the technology has evolved leaps and bounds with OpenAI. But what does that mean for blockchain? Well, join us for the fourth and final episode of Banking on Bitcoin Revisited, and we're going to look at how blockchain and AI are integrating, and we need to look at the current regulations and really how Elon Musk has integrated into the blockchain space, what happened in the 2021 bull run, 2021, 2022, 2020, and really just discover where we're going now. See you in the next one.
Have a great day now.